Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni, Lynn, Collins, and Cheryl Ellsworth, Jahani. We are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we are here on irlonestar.com, 104.5 and 106.1 every Tuesday from 12 to 1, answering your legal questions and talking about various legal topics. And you can also watch us and listen to us live on Facebook. And you can message us with some questions if you have anything you'd like to ask us. We'll try to get to those questions. But today, we are going to talk about what happens in traffic court. We're going to talk about trial by judge and also how to select a jury if you want to represent yourself. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we just want to continue the discussion. And
to finalize it, because we are trying to sort of put out there when you want to fight your ticket, because a lot of times you don't want to fight it.
Right.
I mean, it would just be ridiculous and it would be inefficient and because you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So why, if you really did it, or there's a litany of other reasons why you may not want to fight your ticket. But if you truly believe that it's in your best interest to contest your ticket, then we kind of went over some different things to think about on our previous shows. And today we're actually going to take that leap that you've decided that it's in your best interest to contest this ticket. And when you show up, what to expect, pretty much. And I just got another traffic ticket today. It was
you got a ticket?
No, not me. I got another client.
Oh, okay.
No, the last show we were talking about how I got pulled over, and it was on Good Friday, and the amazing trooper stopped me because I had a headlight out. And it was a good thing that he stopped me. I know one likes to be pulled over, but had he not, I wouldn't have known because I'm, completely oblivious to everything. I'm like, I was just watching a YouTube or reading a book or something about who was that they're talking about? I forgot what it was, but it was this guy that was really, really, really smart. Not that I'm really smart, but he was just always sort of absent-minded, but he was always in the moment. That was what he liked to say. I'm not absent-minded. I'm in mind of the moment. And that's kind of how I am a lot. And so this guy stopped me, and I was very, very happy that the trooper gave me a notice. But no, one of my beloved husband Jim's nurses that he works with got a ticket at her daycare last Friday, and it was raining, just like it was just now. Devil's beating his wife, because I know you never heard that. That's so funny. You'd never heard that before. It was raining really hard and it's sunny, and it just stopped. It was kind of crazy. It was raining really hard. Now it's sunny again. But anyway, she was dropping her kids off at their daycare, and she has twin little girls. They're like 8 months old, I believe, really babies. And it was raining, and it was real trafficking, and it was on a major thoroughfare where they drop them off. And so there was no place to park, and so she pulled into the handicap spot because she had the twins, and there was a policeman watching from across the street. And this Montgomery County sheriff gave her a ticket for being in the handicap spot in the pouring rain. She's like, what am I supposed to leave my babies in the car? And so Jim got a hold of me, and I'm like, Jim, I don't have time to take any more cases. Please, I'm too busy right now. He said, please. So I went ahead and I put my motion in to represent her, because you should not get a ticket in an emergency situation. That is to protect the public. And had she parked at the only place available and had to walk across the street, she would have got hit by a car. One of her kids could have gotten kidnapped or something, and it was raining. She could have slipped with them. No, that was ridiculous. So that's the kind of thing where you do want to fight it. And if you think that perhaps you won't get a fair shake because maybe the judge is, good friends with the prosecutor, which I want to say in Montgomery County, I'm just not seeing that. I'm not feeling it, as they say, because I think the judges, there's enough new prosecutors that are rotating in that they're
That's
not like
true.
really good friends with them. And they're pretty fair. The justices I've been in, and I've been in what we're going to say was, and I think if you've been in any of these, you can kind of help me out. But when Judge Edie Conley was in Montgomery Court, the JP Court 3, I was there a lot doing traffic tickets. And then I've been in Judge Mack's court up north, Precinct 1. I've done a few traffic tickets, a few evictions, and it's been in their court and how they operate, seeing how they operate. I was in the one in New Caney, and I think that may be JP Court 4. And then there's one way out west, which is the one that's over in Magnolia. That's JP Court 5. And I believe JP Court 2, there's one downtown. Have I hit all of them? There's Judge Mack's one. 5 is the one that's way out in Magnolia. 4 is the one in New Caney. 3 is the one over here in Woodlands. So I'm pretty sure 2 is the one.
What about the one over off of 45 and Little York?
That's Harris County.
Right.
That's Harris County.
Well, when you say downtown, what were you talking about?
I was
downtown
talking here,
Conroe?
downtown
Oh,
Conroe,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Because, I've been in a ton of the Harris County JP courts, but I try to avoid those like the plague. I'm like, look, let's just do a motion for, time served. Let's just go sit in jail and get rid of those tickets. The Harris County is a lot more crowded, but I will say this. When I've been to the Montgomery County courts, when you go to Montgomery County Court 3, it's there's so many people from the Woodlands there that it's packed. People wait out in the hall.
Yeah.
So you need to get an attorney if you have a JP Court 3, unless you just want to sit it out for a while because you're going to be, it's a number, a numbers game. If you go to the one over in Magnolia, it's pretty fast, and there's not many people there, and all the prosecutors will usually work with you if you're reasonable. Reasonable in that you've got a legitimate reason for contesting your ticket. You're not just trying to, dupe them or something. The one over in New Caney, I've always been to night court for some reason out there, and I don't know if they don't have it during the day, but it's always at night. And that one's kind of crowded too, come to think of it. Anyway, Judge Mack is like, I really like his court because he treats you so well when you go in. He really treats you with a lot of respect, and so do the people that
Isn't
are.
that great?
When you go in, they almost kind of greet you at the door, and there's a metal detector in that one, which I think that's different from the one. That's the only one I remember a metal detector. I don't know why he's got one up there, but they really treat you with a lot of respect in his court, and I really like him a lot. But anyway, that all being said, if you're going to contest your ticket, that's what we're talking about today. And now, have you been in any Montgomery County JP court, contesting a ticket or an eviction or anything like that?
Yeah, I was over in 3 for a client. It was a domestic violence charge. But it was in JP court. And
And they have those on different days, just so you'll know if you have they call it contact assault, or usually if it was domestic violence, it would be a Class B, and you're going to come up here to the Montgomery County, the county courts.
Yeah, you're right. It was. What did you say it was?
It's a contact assault.
Yes,
and
that's
usually
right.
you get that if it doesn't go to the level of domestic violence, because usually the people the police have been called over because there's a mutual fight or there hasn't been something really severe but usually the sheriff shouldn't be making that determination, but really they've got a lot of sway and they're making that determination.
You're absolutely right. That is what happened.
And then they go to the district attorney who's on call that night, and they kind of lay out what they think, even though they're not attorneys. Generally, they've experienced enough; they know what it should be. And really, the best case scenario when you're having a fight with your spouse or your significant other is it's a contact assault, because those are so much easier to resolve. Usually, an online defensive, what do you call it? An online course for domestic violence.
Yes.
Or maybe they make you go in person, but they're a lot easier to resolve than the ones that are going to take months and months. So you may end up going to trial in the county or district court.
Absolutely. The last person or group of people you want involved in a marital dispute are the cops.
Yeah, you want to keep the police out of it if possible. And usually people regret it after they've called.
They do.
But sometimes, like another girl I was helping in Harris County,
she
for 20 years put up with domestic violence, and she finally filed for divorce. And part of the settlement was that the agreement, the mediation, I don't know why they did this, was that she dropped the charges that were currently pending, and she agreed to that. And then he started reneging on his agreement in the mediation, and I didn't represent her. This is something that I was coming through as sort of an advisor. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? If it's the truth, if he's beating you up, you're not doing anybody any favors, because the next person he's with, he's going to do that too.
Yeah.
And the truth will set you free. You have to tell the truth. Sometimes they just need help, but sometimes if it's like chronic, then they need to have a come to Jesus moment in a real way, because there's something seriously wrong if you're hurting your spouse and you get that, you feel like that's the way that you're going to make things better, or get control or whatever it be. Okay, so how to defend yourself in traffic court, to get back on track here. If you believe it's in your best interest to contest a ticket, it is important to be prepared to present yourself in court. In traffic court, as in any other court, it is not your job to prove that you're innocent. It is the state's job to prove you're guilty of the traffic violations. And I say that, and it's really pretty easy. It's your word against theirs most of the time, and they say you rolled to the stop sign or you were speeding, and it's really hard to contest that. So what do? Before you even go to court, it is wise to be prepared by getting copies of all the police reports. You can ask for it in advance, and if it's your ticket, you can get it, okay? And if you don't get them till the day of court, go to court, get copies of it, and ask for a continuance. If you're representing yourself, you're entitled to look at it. Don't say anything. Don't plead with the prosecutor. Anything you say or do will be used against you.
Yeah.
Just look at what's there. Get a copy. Get your cell phone and take pictures. It's your report. You have a right to get pictures of it, okay? You have a right to copies of all the reports and the witness statements. You may not know that somebody was traveling behind you, filming you the whole time until you get to court and find out.
Yeah.
And then maybe you need a plea because maybe you were going 100 miles an hour down the freeway. Or maybe they did see you laughing and having a good time and, throwing your pot out the car while you were going. So those are not good times to go to trial until you find out what they've got against you. And this goes with any fight. This goes with anything, with any kind of trial, not just traffic trial. Once you have obtained all the necessary documents, check your state vehicle code. Compare your own violation with the conduct that is stated in the code to make sure that you have a valid defense point. In other words, when I'm talking about the code, I'm talking about the state of Texas statutes. You want to find out what your defenses are, just like we talked about in the last show. It is a defense. Do you have an emergency defense if you're trying to take somebody to the hospital? Yes. And
what other defenses would there be?
I'm trying to think of the ones. If you're avoiding something in the road, that's a defense. If you're not driving, you're not maintaining your lane because you were avoiding an obstacle. So that's a defense. Another one is going to be, gosh, I can't think of. There's a lot of them, but you want to look to see what the code is, and if you pull
it's in the traffic code.
And it's a statute. The traffic code is a statute. They're all statutes in the state of Texas. So, and if you go to the Department of Public Safety, they have all those laid out, and they actually have them separated out. They're not just I want to say they're in the traffic code. They may be a traffic code for all. I'm thinking penal code. The penal code has everything in it.
Yeah,
if it's a crime,
I was thinking
it's a
penal
crime.
too. Yeah.
It's just that they break it out, just like they have. The property code has within it what's called the trust code. There's not a trust code. I mean, just kind of give you an example. There's not a trust code in the statutes, but within the Texas property code is something called the trust code, okay? So the same thing applies to the penal code. And if you Google it, particularly if you go to the Department of Public Safety, if it's a traffic offense, then you want to look at that. But that goes with almost anything. If you think you have a defense with an assault, go look it up. An attorney goes to law school, but they may not be well-versed in this, and you need to, just like we were talking about before the show, you need to keep track of what your attorney's doing because they could be charging you $70,000 and not even showing up for court yet.
No kidding.
And then they fire you, the client, because they know that you've got money, and they're kind of holding you over a barrel.
Yeah.
And that's not right either. That's sort of report them to the ethics, committee, the state bar kind of stuff. Anyway, look up the state vehicle code, and that would be the Texas Department of Public Safety, or anything you Google, you're probably going to come up to. You can Google a lot of stuff, but I would rely upon the actual statutes themselves and not just what you Google. Now, it is important, and I tell this to everybody, including the girl that I just took on our case with the 2 kids that was outside the daycare. It is so important to have the presence of mind when you get pulled over, or if you are in any situation where the police become involved. it is important to take pictures of the place where the incident happened to be able to prove that the state is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a parking ticket. That's a traffic ticket. We've got cell phones. We are in a day and age where you can record everything. You take care of it right then, because I asked her, I said, did you get pictures? It was raining that day. There was no place to park.
She never thought about it.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Just for 1 second, put your little kids back in the car seat and get their crying faces.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to win just on that alone, particularly if you have to get a jury and they won't work with you. Moreover, it is recommended, I'm reading this, but I just wanted to make sure that I got that. It is recommended to check a car's odometer to be sure that the odometer is not broken. I don't even know why you'd want to check the car's odometer, but I guess that's you think that's showing whether you're speeding or not. I have never had a broken odometer. I don't know if that's something you need to check. I guess you could go to your local mechanic and look at that. But I'll tell you what, I've had some people that have been in serious trouble with the law. And I wouldn't even have guessed that they had a problem with their car, but they've gone to the mechanic and said, look, they pulled me over. I got pulled over for having a bad brake light, and I just had it fixed. Or I didn't know this at the time. And that's a defense to show that I had it fixed, or it was broken, or my brakes weren't working, or my odometer. If you seriously have that defense, if it's the truth, if your car is not functioning properly, then you better give your attorney, or you better do it for yourself. You need to go to a mechanic and get them to print out what is wrong with your car. If they've checked it out, this was wrong. I did this before and I didn't fix it properly. Because that's a defense. Your car is broken. Okay?
Right.
During traffic court, it's very important to make a good impression, make sure that you're dressed nicely and have a pleasant attitude. And remember that they're just doing their job. They're the people in the court, the bailiff, the prosecutor, other people there. They're just doing their job. You have to just be pleasant. It's just something that happened. We don't know that God didn't want you to be there for some reason, that maybe you needed to help somebody.
Yeah.
There's a reason you're there, so be pleasant about the whole thing and just take it all with, I'm going to do the very best I can and honor God while I'm there, okay? So be pleasant. It is highly recommended that you call the judge Your Honor, and when you speak to him or her, try your very best not to argue with the judge. Even though you may feel like you're an uppity doctor, you're used to bossing people around because you're the boss, you have a $1 billion company.
Right.
You are not the boss of that court, the judge is. And you better be really polite when you go in there and be very humble. Humility is the most important characteristic you're going to have walking in there. The second one is being prepared and having confidence. Humility and confidence. You would think there's a dichotomy there. There's not.
Right.
You can be confident while still being humble. You better be humble and polite going into that courtroom, or you're not going to do very well.
That's right. The judge will put you in your place.
And I know that Dick was telling us that we had to take a little break.
Oh, he was? Okay.
I talked over.
All right. Well, listen, Toni and I are here today talking about traffic court and how to represent yourself. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Montgomery County and online listeners. Thank you so very much for checking out Jazzy Vibes with Soul. What? You haven't done so yet? Well, you've got to tune in. Hi, I am the host of Jazzy Vibes with Soul, Miss CeCe Holmes, and I invite you to check us out every Friday and Saturday from 7 until 9 p.m., where you will get the best in old school R&B and, of course, a little smooth jazz to make it jazzy. So tune in. That's right, tune in every Friday and Saturday right here on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM, or worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Path to the Plate is a research-based education program that helps consumers understand how their food choices impact their health by making the connection to agriculture, learning about how food is grown and produced, and how consumers can make better food choices for themselves and their families. Path to the Plate is all about dispelling myths and misconceptions. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776. to take your first step into the radio world.
Have a legal question? Are you a resident of Montgomery County? Call 281-645-6344 to talk to a volunteer attorney from the Woodlands Bar Association. We answer the phones on the first Monday of every month at 281-645-6344 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to provide general legal information and information about legal resources to Montgomery County residents.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out ourlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni and I are here today talking about representing yourself in traffic court. We're going to get to whether it's a trial by judge or jury. Mm-hmm. But, Toni, I think that you made a good point that that there are times that you want to represent yourself and times you don't want to represent yourself. But, we were talking during the break about people in court. And
humility versus confidence, and why there's such a dichotomy, and where do you get the strength even when you're so afraid to go forward on it's the simplest thing.
That's what is I notice over and over, and as an attorney I forget how scared people are in court, how upset they are, how stressed out they are. And, I guess in a way it's easy for me because it's not my case. I'm not the one that is...
I'm afraid because I want to represent them too. I don't want to let them down.
Right.
The same thing applies to even when you're like in my skating competitions and you step out on the ice, and it is, just like they said, the ice is slippery. You may fall. But you have to kind of pull from your strength from within, being humble, at the same time confident, but in more particularly in court, because you have to speak, and you have to, you're going to have to perform, and you're going to have to influence and persuade. So and we were looking for something that would give us sort of that direction. And you were telling me over our break when you were pulling from a scripture, which I loved. What
I don't remember the exact reference, but I believe it's in Romans. And Paul was talking to I believe it was in Romans. He was talking to the Romans, and he said, I've been walking around your great city, and there are all these statues to all these different gods. You guys are so religious. And I even saw a statue to the unknown God. And then Paul went on to say, it's him that I want to talk to you about, and proclaim him to you. And started talking about, the God of the Bible. And Paul made this statement that I thought was just awesome. That says, in him, for it's in him we live and move and have our being. And, we were talking during the break about, how our clients just get so scared, so nervous in court.
Me too, though.
Yeah. And if we could just relax and know that it's going to be okay. In him we live and move and have our being. Nothing's going to come at us that we can't handle. It's going to be okay. And just have a level of peace. And I think with the peace comes confidence that you're going to be able to do what you need to do.
The humility to know that it's out of your hands, really. It's really kind of all in God's hands. But to still be prepared. Not humility, it's out of my hands, I'm scared because I'm not prepared.
I'm not doing it right.
But I've got the humility of knowing that it's not in my hands. It's really all in God's hands. And I can only live through him because this is happening for a reason. I'm either fighting it for a reason, or so I may meet somebody that's going to watch and get something from it, whatever it may be. But you have to be prepared, is what we're going over today.
See, that's when I get stressed. If I feel like I'm prepared, but I think there may be other things that I needed to do to get prepared, or whatever. Because you don't have the experience
to know that there may be something that you just didn't know that everybody else knows, and it's going to be a gotcha moment for the other side.
Right.
Fortunately, with traffic tickets, I don't think there's ever going to be a gotcha moment, because usually the prosecutors are fairly new. They're nice people, but believe it or not, I think for the most part, we'll have to say this because we're talking about ourselves and we're not humble about this. But people that go to law school are attorneys are actually nice people for the most part, unless somehow they get possessed or tainted or something, which I know a lot of them too. They've been my opposing counsel from time to time. And some of the people that come up to us and they charge, when they're all about the money, they definitely get tainted. I mean, that's really bad because it's the love of the money. But when they, I lost my train of thought thinking about the love of the money. And
You were
winning the
talking about
lotto.
the prosecutors, and I think you were going to say a lot of them are young and fresh
Yeah,
out
they're
of law
young and
school.
they have good hearts and they're human. They're people like you are too. And if you tell them the story of what's going on and have a legitimate basis for your ticket or whatever the case being dismissed, they're pretty nice people. And given that they probably have to get authority from their supervisor to maybe it's something that's a little bit more severe dismissed, they're going to work with you. And I think they have a better time working with attorneys because attorneys know exactly what to get at very quickly. That's the benefit of having an attorney.
Right.
They're going to very quickly hit the finer points of why they're not going to win, or better yet, why you will win. But it's really their case to prove that you're guilty. But traffic court's a different story because it's so hard to prove. It's so hard to fight a ticket because it's he said, she said. But that being said, they're usually pretty nice people and they're humble. But they're not going to do a gotcha thing because there's not a lot to traffic court and a gotcha moment. A gotcha moment's when it's like maybe it's risen to the level of a DWI and you're not in traffic court anymore. You're in district court, or county court if it's only the first two. And they've got somebody behind you that's called it in and they're videotaping you weaving down the street the whole time. That's different. The only thing you're going to have, like in traffic court, is maybe the policeman was, he got you speeding. And it could be, if you're going fast enough, you're endangering somebody, it's not going to be in traffic court anymore. So these are not offenses where you're going to go to jail. These are offenses like public intoxication, where you probably shouldn't have been arrested, but you were, and you can get out of it that way or whatever. But that all being said, preparation, humility, have enough humility to know that you have to be prepared, complete preparation, and then the confidence when you go in that you've got God walking with you on your side, that you've said your prayers, that you can hold your own. Don't be afraid. Don't be so humble that you're afraid to talk. Speak up for yourself. Don't be bullied. Okay. But now, that being said, furthermore, make sure if you do have witnesses, if you've got a traffic court, let's go back to traffic court. And I do what you were saying about what Paul said, and it's almost like, God walking with you. It's the footsteps where, the two footsteps and then suddenly there's only one set. That's how I feel when I go into trial, no matter if it's good, bad, or ugly, no matter what my facts are. If the other side's going to lose miserably, I feel bad for them because they don't have the foresight to settle. If it's a divide, because there's something maybe I don't know, I may learn while I'm going. I never go to trial, though, if I don't think I'm going to win, because why would I do that? I mean, I'm going to settle or accept, I'll only go to trial if my client can't be convinced. And generally, I'm pretty persuasive. I let them know up front it's going to cost you a whole lot more because I'm going to charge you more because I'm going to be fighting for something that's going to be a lot harder to win than you know, and I like to win. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I usually don't charge my cut rate fee if I think that I'm going to be fighting something that's going to be just a holy terror to win because the facts are so bad. But and again, what was the phraseology or the scripture where it's
In him we live and move and have our being.
right? No, it's when you're going to court, you should settle.
Oh, settle with your enemy on the way. Yeah.
Yes.
Lest when you get there, you get turned over to the bailiff and the judge, and you be made to pay back in full.
Yeah, that's a very, very critical for criminal because you're losing your freedom. You may go to jail.
Yeah.
But it goes for civil too.
Sure,
if
be
you really,
reasonable.
If the other side, and I will just kind of throw this out there, the other side may have one in pretrial or maybe the temporary injunction, or they may have one in trial court, they may have one in the appellate court, they may have one in the Texas Supreme Court. But ultimately, just like cases like Roe v. Wade, not that that's a good one as an example as a Catholic, but there's many cases that go all the way to the Supreme Court where, like the cake baking thing that was recent.
The homosexual marriage.
Yeah, where the
cake
Supreme Court
baking.
determined that it's not. They do have a choice. You should not have to bake a cake if it's against your religion. If you go all the way to the Supreme Court with something, it could be that the courts were wrong all the way along. And if you've got enough strength to fight it, like one of our clients wants to fight a case that, we're fighting with her about it because we just feel like it's such a difficult case to win. But she's got so much energy and so much faith that she's going to win that she's just ready to go. Then you really do need to fight it. Don't let anything get you down. ever. If you really feel like that God is behind you on this, that you've got that the facts support that you should be victorious for the principle, if nothing else, then you really do need to fight it, because it may be why, like the purpose-filled life. It may be along the journey in your way of failing that you're going to ultimately win, and it's going to give somebody the strength to go forward on their own. Now, I didn't mean to get on a tangent on that, but it's just that people get let down when they lose, and a lot of times just losing to one jury or losing in court, it may not be what's supposed to happen, in your heart.
Right.
So it takes a lot of prayer and a lot of looking up cases and that kind of thing.
And a lot of preparation, A
lot of preparation, yes.
And I really think that, so okay, these people, they've decided they're going to represent themselves. So they need the evidence. You were saying take pictures.
Take pictures. You want to look at other cases to see if other cases like yours have been won. There's traffic ticket courts you can look at, cases in court. But in any case, again, you want to look at other historically, like the Bible, a history book. You want to look historically at something to see how it turns out, okay, given your similar facts. That's what all attorneys are going to do for the most part.
And so then, they go to court that day, right? So
yes. You need to make sure you got your pictures and your witnesses. If you're set for trial, don't go to court thinking you're going to get a continuance. You have your witnesses. And if you are the defendant, you don't have to disclose your witnesses to the prosecution. Only if they're an expert, you have to disclose them. If it's just the witnesses that are there, and a lot of times your witnesses may actually sort of be experts if it's in front of a jury, all right? So you're going to show up there with your witnesses, have your pictures, be dressed well. Witnesses often can verify and support your version of things and the events, and can help you get your ticket dismissed because they were there in the car with you. The policeman may not even have known that you had a sleeping kid in the back who was like 12. Maybe they didn't look in the back.
Yeah.
And maybe the kid was awake the whole time, and maybe he was filming it the whole time. And you don't have to let the police know you're filming. In fact, you probably shouldn't, because it'll probably aggravate them a little bit. If you have passengers in the car, considering putting them on the witness stand, let's see, make sure to take advantage of your legal right to cross-examine the police officer who wrote the ticket. Very important. We're going to go over that. You want to ask them questions, because just them giving their version of things, that's their version of things.
Well, what kind of questions would they ask him?
We have got a whole litany
Or her.
of questions that they're actually in our printouts that gives you a kind of a chronological setup of what you're going to ask. And the questions are going to be, you're going to be very polite and let them tell their story. If they try to say something that's hearsay, of course you're going to object, and your objections are like, here's a good example. The police officer says, well, we got a call in on the radio, and the person behind him said they were going 120 miles an hour and ran over a dog. The minute you hear the police officer start to say, we got a call, objection, hearsay, because we didn't get a call.
Yeah.
And no matter what that call that came in, he can't say what he heard. He can only say what he said. He can say what he observed. He doesn't get to talk about what he heard. That's the biggest thing with police officers. They can't go in there and start talking about it. They can't talk about what's on the police report either. That's why you get to see up front what they're going to say. So you want to get that stuff up front. But if they start talking about what they heard, the minute you say, well, I heard, or they said, you want to jump up like a bunny and say objection, hearsay, because that judge is going to sustain that objection. It doesn't matter if you've never done this before or not. Just be prepared, all right? Now, during cross-examination, try to remain calm and treat the officer with respect, because he does get to say what he saw, and he does get to say what he said, okay? And most of his testimony is going to be on what he saw, okay? It may be what he saw running across the screen and he read, but he saw it. If the police officer tries to ask you questions, object to it and let him know that he's not allowed to practice law. So if you're representing yourself, you can object to him asking questions. Even if he's asking you, he can't ask you, were you smoking pot that day?
Yeah.
Objection relevance. It's not. You wouldn't be it wouldn't be a traffic ticket case. It would be something more. It is highly advisable not to request a jury trial, since often jurors are not sympathetic to a defendant in traffic violation cases. But a lot of times you need a jury, because you can see that the entire court is aligned with the officer.
Right.
He may be the most popular officer in town, but he's your next door neighbor and didn't like that your dog barks all the time. So you got to be real careful, which reminds me. And I know we have to take a break, but the gal that just won the election, it was a runoff election for the mayor of Kemah, is a Facebook friend of mine, Terry Gales.
Yeah.
And her next door neighbors for years, like 10 years back, were harassing her about her dog barking. And they filmed her, and it was really bad. And so she finally just stepped up to the plate and ran for mayor, and now she's the mayor.
Well, good for her.
So beware.
But
Your next door neighbor might be beware.
before we take a break, I want to say too, if an officer uses notes, you can object to those.
Yes.
Be careful. Watch them. But officers a lot of times use notes if they don't refresh their mind about what happened before they show up to court.
Yes.
You can object and ask to see them and review them and ask that a proper foundation.
Well, they can't read off the notes. They're entitled to refresh their memory with those notes. But you can say, Your Honor, may I approach and read the notes they're reading off of before they say anything. So you wouldn't object and be able to review what they're reading. Because what if they've got a whole dialogue waiting for them just to spill out? And I had done a case early on, like 20 years ago, and the defendant was up there reading off her notes. But it was really her lies that she wanted to keep up with. And I got to go and I got to look at her notes, and then I knew what she was going to say, and we ended up winning the case. And I wasn't even that good. I just need to look at her notes.
Good for you. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. We are talking about how to represent yourself in traffic court and question witnesses. And we'll be right back after the break and continue the discussion.
Don't miss Lone Star Community Radio on TV and YouTube. Our talk show and music shows are featured on Our City TV, Suddenlink Channel 12, and have their own YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with posted shows and comment on them below the video.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Today we are talking about representing yourself in traffic court. And so, Toni, before the break we were talking about you've got the police officer on the stand, the officer's shown up. I just want our listeners to know, so what do you do if the officer doesn't even show up?
That's you already know if the officer hasn't showed up that you're going to request that you're going to move that the judge dismiss the case because they cannot make their case without a witness.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the best case scenario. That happened to me one time. I was about 16 years old and I was contesting this ticket. I shouldn't have gotten it. And the officer didn't show up. And so I said to the judge, what do I do with this, Your Honor? Held up the ticket and the judge looked at me and said, frame it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. When I was in the JP Court 4 in Harris County, I guess it's Precinct 1, Precinct 4, Place 1, whatever it is, over there off Cypress Wood. The way they group it is before you even want to say anything, they'll start calling out who's dismissed because they know the officer's not there.
Oh, okay.
And and you don't even have to bother with that. So they just start saying your case dismissed, and everyone's like, yay, why am I not dismissed? Or I want to wait, but wait longer because it could be that your officer's there, and after they had a chance to talk to the officer, he doesn't want to go forward with it because he doesn't remember your case for the most part. And if you've reset it, like we talked about in some of the other shows a number of times, it could be that the officer. He shows up, but he doesn't remember your case because he's got a group of them on a certain day, or it's so old that he doesn't remember. But if you made a fuss with him, he's going to remember you. That's why you want to be polite when they pull you over.
That's
now, the one thing before we get into this other part, which you have a whole bunch of stuff you're going to tell us about, is the best defense. You were going to ask me about defenses earlier. The best defense in court, other than the police officer not being there, to prove that you should not have a ticket for particularly in speeding, or if it's one of the red light cameras, or if it's going through the tollway, it's not your vehicle that was scanned by their scanner or the speeding, or it was not you driving the car if it was your vehicle. And it's sort of lame because they really grill you on it, like particularly on the red light tickets, and they don't have them in Harris County anymore. And I'm not sure where they have them. They do have them in some places in Texas. you have to, they give you this litany of questions like, because you just mail them in. There's not even any court for those tickets. Who was driving your car? They try to get to you, find out who they can give the ticket to if it wasn't you. But if they can't prove it's your car, if it's the wrong angle for speeding, which is you need an expert for that. But if they can't prove it's your car, they can't prove it was you driving because you've got, like you're short or whatever, they just can't see it was you. They can't give you the ticket. That's the best defense.
Okay, great. Well, so now we have a police officer who has shown up and he's on the stand. So we want to ask him some questions. What if, the officer presents evidence you requested well before trial, but you never received? You should make an objection. He's referring to his notes, a copy which I requested several weeks ago.
I mean, it could have been a mistake. It sounds like it wasn't. But you need to definitely object to. In fact, you want to do that right away if you haven't seen anything, or if they start referring to something that you've asked for and you didn't get. Now, normally in a criminal case, you have to. In a criminal case, because of the what is the name of that case? It's Brady material. They are required under United States versus Brady, which is another United States Supreme Court case, to provide you all evidence that would exonerate you.
Right.
And they usually pretty much give you all of it. But a lot of times they get sneaky and they just leave a few witness statements out. That would be helpful because maybe the police officer's kind of snippy. And I'm talking about a very small percentage of prosecutors or police officers are that this, kind of bad that they wouldn't give it to you. It would more than likely be a mistake. But that's when you, particularly if you're pro se, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You would say, Your Honor, may we approach? I didn't receive this. I'd either like a continuance to review it because it's taken me by surprise, which is a reason for a continuance, or I'd like
exclude it.
I need a little time to review this because this is, I'd asked for it and it's putting me at a disadvantage. So surprise is the big one to get a continuance, but it could be once you see it, it's legit, and you want to negotiate to settle.
Yeah. Okay, what if the officer says something that's clearly outside of their knowledge?
Well, that has to be hearsay because how would they know if they haven't seen it or they didn't say it and they can't hear it? There's some ways of getting around hearsay, but if they've heard it, like on the phone, particularly they can get hearsay if it's a 911 call because it's a government record. So they can get around another officer's statement, another government statement, a 911 statement. A recording is not hearsay because if they can get it authenticated, but it has to be authenticated.
Okay, so how to ask questions of your witnesses. It's difficult for an inexperienced person to ask just the right questions. I think it's the easiest way for people to think about asking questions of a witness is chronological order.
I always do that. It doesn't, it's not always the best method. Like we were in court last week, and because there was so much going on, it would have been a war and peace. We would have been there for 2 years, and the judge would have been cobwebbed because there were so many things we would have had to do to go chronologically. There were so many little things. We decided to revamp the way we presented it and go with the most important things that were done wrong first, because otherwise we were going to lose the judge. It wasn't even a jury trial. And the judges, a lot of times you need to set the pace for things, but if the judge has an idea, he doesn't need that. But in traffic court, it's only going to be a small window of time. You definitely want to go chronological. You're not giving them a war and peace situation. You want to just kind of start out with, even if you want to start out when you got in your car, it can't be that long. So chronological is good for traffic tickets.
So say like your witness is the person that was the passenger in your car, just start out at the beginning. Where were you going?
Your first witness, right. We're going to have them state their name for the court and how they know you. Doesn't matter if they're biased or not. They're still a witness if they were there. You want to establish that it's relevant by saying, what day were you with me? Why were you with me? And you're leaving it all open-ended because remember, if they're, and this is for our listeners, if the person that you're asking questions of is adverse to you, and that would be the officer or maybe an officer's witness, you can ask questions that are yes or no. And if they try to elaborate, you can say objection non-responsive. So if you want to write them out in advance, isn't it true that you were not even on I-45? Your car was not behind me. It was on a side street, teeing me. You couldn't see it. And isn't it true that that you weren't even on duty that day? Or isn't it true that you have a quota? I mean, you can ask a million isn't it true questions, and they can't stop you. The judge isn't going to say you only have 30 minutes. You could do that all day. Now, the judge might be mad and a jury might be mad if you do that, so you want to make it relevant. But certainly, if you want to set out in your cross-examination, or even in your direct, and the state gets to go first because it's their case, so you're going to be cross-examining the officer after he's given his story. You want to have everything yes or no and setting out your story.
So, for example, don't ask, did you see a truck pass my car before the witness says anything about a truck being present. Instead, you first ask, did you see any other vehicles traveling in my direction? When the witness says, yes, I saw a big truck, then it's time to ask him about the truck.
Say, isn't it true that the truck this, or isn't it true? Unless it helps you for them to elaborate. I mean, a lot of times you'll get pulled over and it's just ludicrous. You're not the right person. It's not the right car. You weren't speeding. There was no reason for you to be pulled over. A lot of other people were speeding around you. All the age-old reasons that are good. They're not great legal defenses, but they're the truth. So you may just want to find out what's going on. Maybe the truth of the matter, isn't it true that you're my next-door neighbor and you don't like my dog barking, and that's why we're here?
Yeah, that's the problem. You need to ask, I think you hit on this, but you didn't use the word non-leading questions, open-ended questions, what you just said. You want to ask them non-leading questions, open-ended questions when they're your witness.
Right.
What you've been talking about, cross-examination, isn't it true, blah, blah, blah. That's when you're interviewing or questioning the officer.
Yeah, cross-examination. That would be beautiful if you could ask your own witness yes or no questions, because a lot of times you're trying to get them to answer the way you need them to, and they don't really know where you're going with it. Well, what were you doing that day? And, they may be like, well, I went to a movie. No. What were you? And so you have to redirect them. You have to say, isn't it true, but with regard to the traffic stop, weren't you sitting in my car? That's a yes or no question, but you're trying to get them into, and they're looking at you like, what do you want from me? So you can't just say, come to court, I'm going to ask you questions. You have to say, look, I'm coming to court. You were sitting next to me. I got this ticket. You knew, or maybe you didn't. Tell me the truth. I mean, you don't want to put them on the stand if they're going to tell the truth and it doesn't help you.
Right.
So you want to, maybe you need to plead out if that's the case. Or maybe they were asleep and they couldn't help you. You don't want to get on the stand and say, well, yeah, I was in the car with them, but I was sleeping the whole time. I don't remember a thing. Or, yeah, I was in the car, but I was trying so hard to hide their pot that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, that would be a bad thing.
You need to avoid irrelevant details when you're asking your witness some questions. I think you just kind of covered that. And don't ask questions that assume facts that the witness hasn't testified to, because that's not the purpose of having your witnesses.
You want to make sure that it's clean and it's quick and it's on point, because a lot of times the witness may say something that hurts you and they'll jump all over it. So you don't want to make it a dialogue, but you certainly want to kind of, particularly if they're telling the truth. I tell my witnesses so they don't get afraid. And you want to subpoena them if they're a witness that doesn't want to be there, and that'll help you. A lot of people don't want to go to court. Yeah, they don't want to go to court because they're not here legally, which they're not going to get arrested because they're not going to know up front that this person's not legal, and you need them there. I get that all the time in my real district felony cases. I have a bunch of witnesses, and none of them are here legally, and none of them want to show up for court, and I've got to subpoena them. It's hard enough getting them subpoenaed, served, because you don't know where they're at, what their real names are, but you've got to have them, and they're like, oh, Miss Toni, I'm really going to help you, but I really don't want to be there, and they've got to be there, and they'll say, I'll do anything but be there, and then you get them subpoenaed, and then they're fine, because they tell the truth on the stand, but you've got to calm them down. They're mad. They don't want to be there. You got me subpoenaed, and I'm going to be here. But then they realized in the long run it was helpful. It was to serve God by serving others, and they were there to tell the truth of what they saw. And it's exactly when they just tell the truth, it's exactly what the jury needs to hear, or the judge. But usually when I'm in a felony trial, so I've got a jury trial. Traffic tickets, just like we said, a lot of times they don't want you to have a jury, because if you haven't done it before, then it helps you, because the court doesn't want you to have a jury. It's a waste of time for them. On the other hand, if you go forward and you know what you're doing, it will help you if you kind of follow some of our guidelines. But if a jury sees you not really knowing what you're doing and fiddling around, it looks like you're just trying to waste time, they're not going to look favorably on that. So you don't want a jury for that. If you're not confident enough, just go before the judge.
Okay, so after we've questioned our witnesses, that's when we go in and we make our closing statements, right? Our closing arguments.
Well, if you have a jury, just real quick, because I know we don't have much time left in the show, and we don't want to have to go over traffic tickets again, but your case may or may not be eligible for a jury trial. So before you ask for one, be sure that it's eligible. Traffic tickets are eligible for jury trials, like child custody issues and some other issues for like injunctive relief are not, but that's not what we're talking about today. So be sure first before you ask for one, you can have a jury. You request a jury from the judge, and that's when you get a ticket, you're going to say up front, I want a jury, all right? You usually have to pay for it if you're in county or district court, but not if it's criminal, because that's your right to a jury is a free one. Civil court, you're going to have to pay. You make a request, you pay the fee if it's civil. You have jury selection. Jury selection is when in traffic court in particular, you're going to have about 30 people that they get, prospective jurors from the community. They may be aligned with the judicial system because they're civic minded and they're there, and so they're automatically going to be leaning toward the judge and the bailiff and they're going to be government
Police officer.
leaning because that's the type of people they are. But on the other hand, if you present yourself well, they're going to be leaning your way if they see the facts are completely wrong. You were improperly stopped because you had a police officer who was in a bad mood or something. You want to question your jurors. You want to do a voir dire. You're going to ask them, you're going to deselect 3 of them, basically, not on racially discrimination thing or gender or anything like that. But you're going to pick the first 3 people that are in the row that are numbered that you don't want. And as long as it's not a discriminatory basis, you just get them off the jury. They may be someone that's looking at you crooked. The state does the same thing. Your jury's going to be the first 6 people they choose. You can challenge a juror if they may have, for cause, meaning that after questioning them, they are related to the police officer or anyway, it's a challenge for cause. You may know automatically and tell the judge. You may not know what the reason is, but you know they shouldn't be one of your jurors, and it's legitimate. That they may tell you may be for cause, and you may not even know it, but it's instinctive. Peremptory really challenges. Not let that word scare you. The peremptory challengers are the ones that you just get to pick, the first 3 right off the top, okay? So then after you get your jury seated, you get to do an opening statement generally. I didn't speed because there's no way, blah, 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 blah. You can pretty much say whatever you want. I'm going to show you, and this is what I always do, I'm going to show you in the trial that this is what my evidence is going to prove. And you don't, and then after you've done the trial and we've asked all the questions, you've had the cross-examination and everything, this is what you're talking about is the closing statement where I showed you this and you saw the evidence. So you do a little closing statement and then they get to deliberate.
All right. They deliberate.
And you're found innocent and you feel
That's
good.
right. Yay. And you even represented yourself. All right. Well, listen next week. We're going to be here on 104.5 and 106.1. And you can listen to us live on Facebook. And we're Toni and Cheryl helping you through your legal situations. We want you to always remember,
Serve God by serving others.
have a great week, guys.